Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to another Girls Talking Life Extra. It's not a full show, just a short chat with a past guest to let you know what she's up to now. I am talking with Sarah E. Westfall. Sarah joined me way back on episode 17, where she shared her story of motherhood and heartbreak and seeking God's goodness. She was also my guest host for the Summer of Friendship in 2022, where she talked about barriers to belonging, showing up when life gets hard, and celebration over comparison. Sarah is a writer, speaker, and host of the Human Together podcast. Her previous work includes serving as director of community for online writing groups and as a student development professional on college campuses. She has been published in Relevant, Fathom Mag, and Encourage. Sarah lives in Indiana with her husband, Ben, and 4 sons. Today we are talking about her new book, The Way of Belonging, Reimagining Who We Are and How We Relate. It releases on June 11th. And friend, this topic is so close to my heart and the mission of Girls Talking Life. At the end of chapter 1, Sarah writes, "Belonging is not something to attain, but someone to become. It is not about finding the right place or the right people, but about embracing our worth as God's beloved and then extending the welcome. Because belonging is already in us, part of who we have always been and who we are becoming. And maybe those very wounds we want to hide can help us find our way back to God and to each other." Here's my chat with Sarah. Hey, Sarah, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Oh, it's so good to be back with you.
I'm excited to see your face, and I am beyond excited to talk to you about the book you have written. It is called The Way of Belonging, Reimagining Who We Are and How We Relate. Talk to me about your brand new book, Sarah.
Yeah. This book has been a long time coming. I write in the book saying that belonging is a question that I have carried with me for a really long time. That ache to belong, I think, is pretty hardwired in us, but it doesn't always have a clear direction or a clear answer to the question of belonging. And so part of that has just been in me, and I think most of us from the beginning. But this book really explores a question that came out of a conversation a few years ago. I was speaking at a women's conference on community and connection and, talking about a lot of the things that the practical aspects of trying to forge connections out of, thin air. And after the fact, a woman came up to me and she said, I've been doing all of these things. I've been inviting people over to my home. I've been meeting people for coffee. I've been going to Bible study. Why do I still feel like I don't belong? Mm. And to be honest, I did not know what to say to her, because I recognized in her question a question that I carried as well. Because we can so often be in a sea of familiar faces and still feel so desperately alone. Or on the flip side of that, we can be alone and feel incredibly settled and content within ourselves. And so if belonging is not manufactured, if it's not the step-by-step, do these things and you will feel this interior sense of settledness, then what is it? And how do we get it? And so this book is an exploration of those questions. The first half of it really digging down into who am I in light of the love of God? What does it mean to be embraced by the love of God in such a way that I experience belonging within myself that is not dependent on a particular place, a particular person. And then in turn, what does it look like then to extend that same welcome, that same sense of belonging to others just in my everyday life? And so we really explore that in the first half. And then the second half is like, okay, this is all really great idea, Sarah, but how? And I'm not an especially formulaic or prescriptive person and or writer, but we do get into some postures and practices in the second half that just help us take a look at what does it look like to be a person of welcome in the world and to embrace the abundant and infinite love of God in our everyday lives. And so we explore these kind of postures and practices that go hand in hand in the second half of it. So yeah, that's in a nutshell the book, both its origins and kind of what it looks like now, several years later.
It's really amazing. Some of the things that you mentioned earlier that the woman was saying, I do all of these things. Like some of those things are things we talk about on this show because I want to encourage connection among women. And I think it's so important for us in our souls. Are there still aspects of those things that we do need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's kind of like tools in our toolbox that we can still use the same tools, but when our interior posture affects the way that we use them and the reasons we go about using them. Because I think that so often when it comes to cultivating our own sense of belonging, because belonging is interior, it is something that I can't see right now, whether or not you feel like you belong here in this conversation. I have no idea because it's kind of the flip side of loneliness. It is incredibly unseen and interior. But we can still use these same tools from a posture of being settled and secure and resting in the abundant love of God, of understanding who we are in light of the love of God, and then use those tools as a means of handing that same welcome, of being an extension of that love to the people in our everyday lives. And learning to be the person that we want others to be for us. And not in an like overextending sort of way. Like belonging is not our work. It's not a performance. It's not an outcome that it's really easy to confuse that sometimes because a pat on the back or a moment in the spotlight feels really good. But, these things that we do to make others feel welcome, if we're doing it from that posture of belonging, of allowing the deep and abundant love of God to flow through us, then that changes what we expect on the other side of it. We're not trying to do it for an outcome necessarily, but doing it out of who we are becoming. And hopefully who we are becoming is more like the Father himself, more like God himself. So we can kind of detach what we do from what is produced on the other side of it.
You were a guest host for me back in 2022 for the Summer of Friendship. And that whole series, I start with, this is important to God because God is relational. And then we talk about ourselves, like it starts on the inside. Do you think that understanding and moving into that belonging within ourselves has to do with age or spiritual maturity? Like how do we get there? Where does that start?
Well, I think it honestly begins by not expecting to arrive. That belonging, and this is why we titled the book The Way of Belonging, because belonging is a way of being. It is not a place of arrival, because we all have experienced enough life to know that over time we change. The people around us change. I mean, my husband, who is my closest, most intimate, knows all the good and the bad person, we change. He changes. And
Yeah.
we have had to learn to grow and shift and exist alongside each other at different levels of connectedness. Like, we don't always feel like we're just clicking and everything is great. And so the more that we can see belonging as a way of being in the world, an attentiveness to our desire for connection, our desire for the communal, and being able to name that and then extend that and have eyes to see the ways in which we can give that right where we are, it kind of takes some of the pressure off to feel like we have to like get it figured out at some point. My mom, who is in her 60s, told me not long ago about how she is in another season of kind of renegotiating what belonging looks like and asking the question again, where do I belong? Like, where is my place, or who are my people in this season? And so again, she is learning to ask these questions of belonging and allowing herself to embrace a posture of curiosity of what does it look like now? Because I think sometimes our belonging, it's kind of like, I like to think of like the tides. Sometimes there is a pressing in. Belonging invites us to press into the people and the relationships around us. But sometimes there's a pulling back. There's a measure of God saying, let it be just us for a little bit. And so maybe the answer to our belonging isn't necessarily always more people. Sometimes it's get alone, get silent, get with God. And so that is not, again, a very prescriptive and neat and tidy answer. But I think that if we can shift it from we are one day going to arrive and be comfortable in who we are and belong, and that's how it's going to exist until the end of all time, to a mindset of this is a way of being in the world. It is a posture toward God, toward ourselves, toward others. Honestly, it's a whole lot more freeing than feeling like we constantly are looking for places to fit.
Yeah, completely agree. That's so good. I love reading your words, Sarah, and listening to your words. And I'm really excited. This book comes out in June. Where can we find it? When can we find it?
Yeah, this is, it's so funny. In writing the book, I had one job, and now bringing this book into the world, I feel like I have 27 jobs. But it's been also a very fun season of trying to be creative in a different capacity. So the book comes out on June 11th, and it is available for pre-order. You can buy it from InterVarsity Press, ivpress.com, which is my publisher, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Christian Book. I know that all of those places currently have it for pre-order. And I always kind of like check them on occasion because they all tend to have different pricing or different sales here and there. So be sure to shop around a bit. Sometimes you can find a deal. And then for anyone who does pre-order, I put together a bonus, less as an incentive to buy early, but more as a thank you for those who do. I don't expect anyone to order early because for everyone, like people can't do that. We have budgets, right? But it does help authors give early indicators to publishers and to book retailers, kind of how the book is going to do, kind of give some early indication. And so it is helpful to authors to pre-order. It's just kind of a vote of support, I guess.
Yeah.
So as a thank you for all of that, because I am not a saleswoman and all of that feels very uncomfortable to me, I put together a gift. There is a beautiful digital, like high resolution art print from my friend Kristen Vanderlip. She did an original commissioned work based off of the book. It's called Wide Open Welcome, and it's beautiful. So that is part of a download you can get right away. And then you can read the first chapter of the book right away. There's a lock screen that you can save for your phone with a quote from the book. And then the last piece of that pre-order thank you is that I'm doing a summer book club where in June, July, and August, we'll be reading through The Way of Belonging and being able to gather together to kind of talk about it and talk through some of the questions within the book. But if you pre-order, normally my book club that I do kind of year round is for our paid subscribers on Substack, but this will be, you'll get it for free. You'll be able to come in and take advantage of that and be invited to our virtual book launch party if you want to attend, and there'll be giveaways and fun stuff with that too. So the pre-order bonus, if you just go to sarahewestfall.com, so Sarah with an H, and then there is the middle initial E, Westfall.com. And I always have to say that E because it gets lost and then it gets sent to some other Sarah Westfall, bless her dear soul. So
I will make sure to include a link with the E.
Yes, there you go. That'll be so much easier. So it's all there, and you can just fill out a quick form, and then immediately you'll be able to access those downloads. And I think that that's it. But yeah, June 11th, it's coming quickly.
It is. I am so excited for you, Sarah. I am excited for this book to make its way into the world. Everything you have said about it resonates really deeply with me, and I think my listeners will feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and share a little bit about it. You know, I'm glad to know I haven't worn out my welcome here.
Absolutely not. Come back next time you have something that you want to bless us with.
Absolutely. I will do that.
Thank you, Sarah. Isn't Sarah lovely? Whether you're in a season of longing to belong, or you want to better understand how to extend belonging to others, you'll want to pick up this book. I'm reading it right now, and it is so very good and thought-provoking. Find all the things that Sarah mentioned, including the link to pre-order The Way of Belonging, in the show notes. You can use code IVPPOD20 for 20% off plus free shipping at ivppress.com. And I will be giving away a copy of her book next month to a GTL newsletter subscriber. Be sure you're on my mailing list for a chance to win. I'll be back next week with an all-new episode. Thanks for tuning in, friend.